Hey, Story Hub fans! Imagine creating a game-changing electric car only to be accused of stealing it, then rising to become a CEO. This is the incredible true story of one inventor's fight for justice against all odds. Hit that like button and subscribe to Story Hub for more inspiring tales that'll keep you hooked. Let's dive in. Picture yourself standing beside the most groundbreaking electric vehicle ever made, knowing every wire, every circuit, every revolutionary part inside it. Now imagine security being called because people think you're trying to steal it. That's exactly what happened to James Thompson at the renowned Future Tech Expo in Chicago when he faced the car he'd spent 3 years building from scratch in his Detroit garage. The irony was crushing. The humiliation was unbearable. But what followed would reveal one of the most shocking cases of corporate theft in modern tech history. James stood frozen as the security guard approached, his weathered hands gripping a thick folder of technical drawings. "Sir, please step away from the vehicle," the guard ordered, his voice slicing through the hum of the crowded expo hall. James's throat tightened. "This is my car," he whispered, almost to himself. "I built it." The crowd started to stare. Phone cameras appeared from pockets, recording what seemed like just another security incident at a high-end tech event. But James's trembling fingers knew every bolt on that machine. His bloodshot eyes recognized the electromagnetic propulsion system he'd perfected through countless sleepless nights. This wasn't just any car. It was his life's work, gleaming under the expo lights, displaying someone else's logo. The morning had begun with such hope. James had driven 4 hours from his small workshop in Detroit, carrying only a worn backpack filled with documentation and a desperate plan to reclaim what was rightfully his. The Future Tech Expo represented everything he'd dreamed of as an engineer, a stage where true innovation was meant to be celebrated and rewarded. He'd watched the event on live stream for years, dreaming of the day his invention would shine on those polished floors. He never imagined seeing it there without his permission, presented by a man who'd betrayed his trust in the most calculated way. Edward Langley stood at the center of the Tech Trend Pavilion, like a peacock flaunting his feathers, gesturing confidently toward the sleek vehicle James instantly recognized as his own prototype. Langley wore a perfectly tailored navy suit, his silver hair swept back with the authority of decades of corporate success. He spoke to a group of potential investors about revolutionary breakthroughs and cutting-edge engineering, his voice carrying the smooth confidence of a man who never doubted his place in the world. "Gentlemen," Langley declared with theatrical flair, "what you're seeing represents the future of sustainable transportation. Our electromagnetic propulsion system will transform the industry." Each word felt like a dagger in James's chest. James approached cautiously, his phone discreetly recording as he captured images of his own work being presented by another man. The technical specifications on nearby monitors were his calculations, his innovations, his late-night breakthroughs. He recognized the unique electromagnetic coil configuration he'd developed, the battery management system he'd perfected, and even the aerodynamic modifications he'd made for efficiency. It was like watching someone wear his clothes, live in his house, claim his children as their own. "Excuse me, sir, you cannot photograph proprietary technology." A security guard appeared beside him, hand outstretched toward James's phone. The accusation stung like a slap. Proprietary technology. His own invention had been labeled someone else's proprietary technology. James tried to explain, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "I need to speak with Mr. Langley. This vehicle uses technology I developed." The guard's expression stayed unmoved, trained to spot threats, not legitimate claims. "Sir, I need you to delete those photos and step away from the exhibit." That's when Edward Langley noticed the commotion. His eyes met James's with a flicker of recognition that quickly turned to cold calculation. Their last conversation had been 2 years earlier, when Langley visited James's garage under the guise of a potential partnership. He'd studied every blueprint, asked detailed questions about every component, and promised a collaboration that never materialized. Now he approached with the measured steps of a man fully in control of his environment. "Is there a problem here?" Langley asked, his tone laced with just enough concern to seem helpful while asserting his authority. James felt his heart race as he faced the man who'd stolen his future. "Mr. Langley, you know exactly what the problem is. This vehicle uses my electromagnetic propulsion system. These are my designs." The words came out more desperately than James intended, betraying the depth of his frustration and the weight of his losses. Langley's response was devastating in its simplicity. He didn't deny the technology. He didn't argue ownership. He simply smiled, a practiced smile of someone who understood power dynamics far better than his accuser. "Security," he said calmly. "Please escort this gentleman out. I believe he's confused about the nature of our proprietary developments." The phrase was perfectly crafted, hinting at mental instability rather than a valid grievance, protecting Langley's reputation while dismissing James as irrelevant. As security moved to escort him away, James glimpsed the investors watching the scene. Their expressions ranged from mild curiosity to slight discomfort, but none showed any inclination to intervene or investigate his claims. In their world, security incidents were handled swiftly and quietly, not probed for truth. The system was built to protect established players like Langley, not to amplify outsiders with inconvenient accusations. James realized with crushing clarity that his confrontation had only reinforced the power structure that had stolen from him. The humiliation was complete, but the story was far from over. What Edward Langley didn't know was that James Thompson held something far more powerful than anger or desperation. He held the truth, backed by 3 years of meticulous documentation and a brilliant mind that refused to give up. The real battle was just beginning, and it would unfold in ways neither man could have foreseen when their paths first crossed in a cramped garage in Detroit, Michigan. 3 years earlier, James Thompson was a different man, driven by pure innovation rather than denied justice. His workshop filled the back half of a converted garage in a working-class Detroit neighborhood, surrounded by small businesses that fueled American ingenuity. The space was cramped but organized, with hand-labeled bins holding components from electronics stores, surplus dealers, and online suppliers. Every tool had its place. Every spare part had a purpose. Every square inch served his obsession with creating affordable, efficient electric transportation. The inspiration for his electromagnetic propulsion system came from an unlikely source: his grandmother's stories about the streetcars that once connected Detroit's diverse neighborhoods. Margaret Thompson, now 78 and wheelchair-bound due to advancing heart disease, grew up when public transit was affordable and accessible to all. She often spoke of the clean, quiet electric trolleys replaced by diesel buses, lamenting how progress sometimes regressed. "If they could make those streetcars run so smoothly in the 1940s, she'd say, imagine what someone with real vision could do today." James had graduated from MIT with dual degrees in mechanical and electrical engineering, finishing in the top 5% of his class. Despite working 2 part-time jobs to cover expenses, his scholarship didn't. His professors praised his innovative thinking and ability to find elegant solutions to complex problems. He'd expected job offers from major tech firms, chances to join teams building the next generation of electric vehicles and sustainable technologies. Instead, he faced polite rejections, always citing his lack of real-world experience despite his stellar academic record and internship performance. Tesla's rejection letter was especially crushing. "While your academic achievements are commendable," it read, "we're seeking candidates with more practical experience in automotive manufacturing." Apple was more blunt. "Thank you for your interest, but we don't feel you're the right fit for our current team dynamic." Google's response arrived 3 months late, a form letter that didn't even mention the specific role he'd applied for. Each rejection felt like a door slamming shut, not just on a job, but on the future he'd envisioned. Starting his own company was born of necessity, not entrepreneurial ambition. With student loans looming and his grandmother's medical bills mounting, James couldn't wait for others to recognize his potential. He secured a $50,000 small business loan using his grandmother's house as collateral to fund his dream of affordable electric vehicles for working families unable to afford Tesla's luxury prices. The breakthrough later stolen from him happened on a rainy November evening while experimenting with electromagnetic field configurations in his garage lab. Traditional electric motors were efficient but costly to produce and maintain. James's innovation used precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses for propulsion, achieving 40% better energy efficiency than conventional systems. The discovery was accidental, sparked by a wiring error that yielded unexpected results. But James quickly saw its potential and spent 6 months refining the design. His grandmother was his first investor, biggest cheerleader, and toughest critic. When early prototypes failed, she reminded him that failure was just learning by another name. When calculations seemed impossible, she sat beside him at the kitchen table, her arthritic hands organizing papers as he tackled complex equations late into the night. "Your grandfather always said the difference between dreamers and achievers is documentation," she'd tell him. "Dreams fade, but good notes last forever." The prototype vehicle took 18 months to build, using salvaged parts, custom components, and sheer determination. James taught himself welding, electronics fabrication, and automotive assembly via YouTube videos and library books. The garage became his university, lab, and sanctuary. When the car finally completed its first successful test, traveling 15 miles on a single charge with perfect smoothness and near-silent operation, James and his grandmother cried together, knowing they'd witnessed something extraordinary. That's when Edward Langley entered their lives. He'd heard of James's work through a mutual contact at a renewable energy conference and requested a demonstration. Langley arrived at the Detroit garage in a luxury sedan, dressed casually in khakis and a polo shirt, projecting the image of a successful yet approachable entrepreneur. He spent 3 hours examining the prototype, asking detailed questions about the electromagnetic system, efficiency calculations, and manufacturing possibilities. "This is remarkable work," Langley said, his enthusiasm seeming genuine. "I've been in the automotive industry for 20 years, and I've never seen innovation like this from someone so young. You're sitting on technology that could change everything." He spoke of partnership opportunities, his company's resources, and distribution networks, promising to turn James's garage invention into a mass market revolution. "You need someone who knows the industry," he said. "Someone who can protect your intellectual property while bringing your vision to the world." Their talks continued for weeks. Langley visited the garage 3 more times, each visit diving deeper into technical details and James's designs. He brought lawyers to help file preliminary patent applications. He introduced potential suppliers for large-scale component manufacturing. Most crucially, he earned James's trust by treating him as an equal partner, not a novice needing guidance. The betrayal was methodical and complete. After their final meeting, where James shared his full technical specifications for their partnership agreement, Langley vanished. Phone calls went unanswered. Emails bounced back. The lawyers stopped responding about the patent applications. For 6 months, James heard nothing from the man who'd promised to change his life. Then came the announcement. Tech Trend Innovations, Langley's company, unveiled a revolutionary electromagnetic propulsion system for electric vehicles. The press release touted breakthrough technology making electric cars more affordable and efficient. The specifications matched James's innovations almost exactly, but the patents were filed under Tech Trend's name, with Langley listed as the primary inventor. The legal consultation was devastating. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson," the intellectual property attorney explained, "but without proper documentation of your original development timeline and the resources to challenge a major corporation's patent claims, your options are extremely limited. Proving prior invention is costly and time-consuming, and the system often favors whoever files first with the best legal team." James's world crumbled slowly. Business loan payments became unmanageable. His grandmother's medical insurance was canceled when he couldn't afford premiums. The garage workshop was sold to pay debts, along with most of his tools and equipment. He saved only the prototype vehicle, hidden in a storage unit rented with his last credit. For 18 months, he worked construction and delivery jobs, watching as Edward Langley was celebrated as an innovator using technology James had created. Attending the Future Tech Expo was his grandmother's idea. "You can't let them erase you," she said, during a tough talk about her declining health and their financial struggles. "People need to know the truth about what they took from us. Your grandfather said, 'Justice delayed isn't justice denied,' but sometimes you have to fight for it yourself." She urged him to document everything, record conversations, and present evidence publicly if needed. "Don't let them steal your dreams like they stole mine," she whispered, referencing her own experience as a young black teacher forced out of her career by systemic discrimination decades ago. James's innovation used precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses for propulsion, achieving 40% better energy efficiency than conventional systems. The discovery was accidental, sparked by a wiring error that yielded unexpected results, but James quickly saw its potential and spent 6 months refining the design. His grandmother was his first investor, biggest cheerleader, and toughest critic. When early prototypes failed, she reminded him that failure was just learning by another name. When calculations seemed impossible, she sat beside him at the kitchen table, her arthritic hands organizing papers as he tackled complex equations late into the night. "Your grandfather always said the difference between dreamers and achievers is documentation," she'd tell him. "Dreams fade, but good notes last forever." The prototype vehicle took 18 months to build, using salvaged parts, custom components, and sheer determination. James taught himself welding, electronics fabrication, and automotive assembly via YouTube videos and library books. The garage became his university, lab, and sanctuary. When the car finally completed its first successful test, traveling 15 miles on a single charge with perfect smoothness and near-silent operation, James and his grandmother cried together, knowing they'd witnessed something extraordinary. That's when Edward Langley entered their lives. He'd heard of James's work through a mutual contact at a renewable energy conference and requested a demonstration. Langley arrived at the Detroit garage in a luxury sedan, dressed casually in khakis and a polo shirt, projecting the image of a successful yet approachable entrepreneur. He spent 3 hours examining the prototype, asking detailed questions about the electromagnetic system, efficiency calculations, and manufacturing possibilities. "This is remarkable work," Langley said, his enthusiasm seeming genuine. "I've been in the automotive industry for 20 years, and I've never seen innovation like this from someone so young. You're sitting on technology that could change everything." He spoke of partnership opportunities, his company's resources, and distribution networks, promising to turn James's garage invention into a mass-market revolution. "You need someone who knows the industry," he said. "Someone who can protect your intellectual property while bringing your vision to the world." Their talks continued for weeks. Langley visited the garage 3 more times, each visit diving deeper into technical details and James's designs. He brought lawyers to help file preliminary patent applications. He introduced potential suppliers for large-scale component manufacturing. Most crucially, he earned James's trust by treating him as an equal partner, not a novice needing guidance. The betrayal was methodical and complete. After their final meeting, where James shared his full technical specifications for their partnership agreement, Langley vanished. Phone calls went unanswered. Emails bounced back. The lawyers stopped responding about the patent applications. For 6 months, James heard nothing from the man who'd promised to change his life. Then came the announcement. Tech Trend Innovations, Langley's company, unveiled a revolutionary electromagnetic propulsion system for electric vehicles. The press release touted breakthrough technology, making electric cars more affordable and efficient. The specifications matched James's innovations almost exactly, but the patents were filed under Tech Trend's name, with Langley listed as the primary inventor. The legal consultation was devastating. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson," the intellectual property attorney explained, "but without proper documentation of your original development timeline and the resources to challenge a major corporation's patent claims, your options are extremely limited. Proving prior invention is costly and time-consuming, and the system often favors whoever files first with the best legal team." James's world crumbled slowly. Business loan payments became unmanageable. His grandmother's medical insurance was canceled when he couldn't afford premiums. The garage workshop was sold to pay debts, along with most of his tools and equipment. He saved only the prototype vehicle, hidden in a storage unit rented with his last credit. For 18 months, he worked construction and delivery jobs, watching as Edward Langley was celebrated as an innovator using technology James had created. Attending the Future Tech Expo was his grandmother's idea. "You can't let them erase you," she said during a tough talk about her declining health and their financial struggles. "People need to know the truth about what they took from us. Your grandfather said, 'Justice delayed isn't justice denied,' but sometimes you have to fight for it yourself." She urged him to document everything, record conversations, and present evidence publicly if needed. "Don't let them steal your dreams like they stole mine," she whispered, referencing her own experience as a young black teacher forced out of her career by systemic discrimination decades ago. So James saved every dollar, meticulously prepared his documentation, and drove to Chicago to confront his betrayer publicly. He never expected security guards and corporate lawyers. He never foresaw how thoroughly the system would shield established power while silencing truth-tellers. But he also never anticipated what would happen next, when a chance encounter with someone who understood his technology changed everything. The Chicago Convention Center's parking lot felt like the loneliest place on earth as James sat on the hood of his battered Ford Focus, surrounded by scattered papers and shattered hopes. His hands shook as he tried to reorganize technical documents representing years of work, many now marked with the dusty footprints of security guards who'd treated his life's achievement like trash. The November afternoon sun was setting, casting long shadows across the asphalt, highlighting the contrast between his worn-out car and the luxury vehicles in the Expo's VIP parking area. The confrontation inside had been worse than he'd imagined. Not only was he ejected, but security confiscated his visitor's badge, flagged his ID, and banned him from returning. The head of security was professional, but firm. "Sir, you've been identified as a potential threat to intellectual property. Any attempt to re-enter will result in immediate arrest for trespassing." The phrase, "potential threat to intellectual property," echoed in his mind, a cruel inversion of reality. The real devastation came when he returned to his car. Someone had broken into it during the expo, prying open the passenger door with enough force to bend the frame. His backup documentation was scattered across the lot, some pages torn, others missing. His laptop bag was rifled through, though nothing valuable was taken. The message was clear. Even outside the convention center, he wasn't safe from forces intent on silencing him. James pulled out his phone to call his grandmother, needing her voice, dreading telling her of his failure. The call went to voicemail, unusual but not alarming. Margaret often turned off her phone during afternoon rests to save battery and avoid interruptions when her energy was low. "Hi, Grandma," he said after the beep, his voice breaking with exhaustion. "I'm okay, but things didn't go as planned. I'll be home tonight, and we'll figure out what's next. I love you." Footsteps approached, making him look up. An older white woman walked toward him across the lot, her graying hair in a practical ponytail, her badge still around her neck. She wore a navy blazer over dark jeans, an outfit blending professional and approachable, suggesting academic authority over corporate power. Her expression showed genuine concern, not suspicion. "Excuse me," she said, nearing him. "I saw what happened inside and wanted to check if you're okay. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Bennett from MIT's Energy Research Institute. Can we talk?" She gestured at the scattered papers around his car. "Looks like someone gave you a rough time out here, too." James studied her face, wary of the patronizing sympathy he'd come to expect from strangers who saw his humiliations but offered no real help. Instead, he saw focused attention, like someone tackling a problem she wanted to solve. "I'm fine," he said automatically, then reconsidered. "Actually, no, I'm not fine at all, but I appreciate your concern." Dr. Bennett knelt to help gather the scattered documents, handling each page with care, as if understanding that technical drawings represented years of work. "I overheard some of your talk with Mr. Langley," she said, handing him a stack. "You mentioned electromagnetic propulsion systems. That's my expertise." She paused, looking at him directly. "Mind if I see your work? I think there's more to this story than what happened inside." For the first time in months, James felt a spark of hope. Someone with expertise wanted to understand his technology, not dismiss or steal it. He pulled out his most detailed drawings, showing electromagnetic coil configurations and efficiency calculations. "This is the core of what I developed," he said, spreading papers on his car's hood. "It's a revolutionary approach to electric vehicle propulsion, improving efficiency by nearly 40% over conventional motors." Dr. Bennett's eyes widened as she studied the diagrams. Her finger traced the electromagnetic field patterns, her mind clearly processing the design's implications. "This is extraordinary," she murmured. "The mathematical elegance, the practical applications." She looked at him with amazement. "How long did this take you?" 3 years, James replied, working alone in my Detroit garage. Every calculation, prototype, and test was done with my hands and money. He pointed to specific diagram elements. The breakthrough was synchronizing electromagnetic pulses with vehicle momentum, creating a feedback loop that boosts efficiency as speed increases. Dr. Bennett studied the specifications intently, as if reading a revelation. After a long moment, she looked up. "Mr. Thompson, I've worked in renewable energy research for 25 years, reviewing patents and proposals from every major automotive and tech company worldwide. What you've created is genuinely revolutionary, years ahead of anything from million-dollar research teams." She stood, facing him directly. "What I saw inside that convention center is deeply disturbing. Edward Langley's presenting your technology as his own breakthrough, isn't he?" Her expertise made the truth obvious. "I've seen his presentations before, impressive but incremental. Today's was a quantum leap that doesn't match his or his team's capabilities." James felt relief and vindication, overwhelming after his confrontation with Langley. Someone with credibility was validating his claims. "He visited my workshop 2 years ago," James explained. "Pretended to want a partnership, accessed all my designs, then vanished. 6 months later, Tech Trend announced their breakthrough with my exact specifications." Dr. Bennett shook her head, visibly angry. That's corporate theft, plain and simple, and incredibly short-sighted of Langley. She gestured toward the convention center. He's presenting technology he doesn't fully understand, built on someone else's innovation. That makes him vulnerable in ways he likely doesn't realize. She paused, formulating a plan. Mr. Thompson, I'm the keynote speaker at tomorrow's Advanced Transportation panel, focusing on breakthrough sustainable mobility technologies. Langley's the featured guest presenter. What if we gave him a chance to show how well he understands his technology? The idea was bold, but seemed impossible. Dr. Bennett, I appreciate the suggestion, but I'm banned from the expo. Security's flagged my information. I can't get back inside. Dr. Bennett smiled for the first time. Mr. Thompson, I've fought institutional barriers my whole career. I didn't become a leading woman in MIT's energy research by accepting others' limitations. She pulled a badge from her blazer. Tomorrow, you're my technical consultant. I can bring expert advisors to any panel I moderate, and I think the audience would love hearing from the true innovator behind this technology. The plan was daring and risky. Failure could mean criminal charges for trespassing or harassment. Success would give James a platform to present his case to the tech industry's top investors and decision-makers, forcing Langley to prove his expertise before those who could spot genuine innovation versus fraud. One thing to understand, Dr. Bennett continued, if we do this, be ready for anything. Langley will try to discredit you, likely attacking your credentials or credibility. The system protects people like him, but you have something he doesn't: true understanding of the technology. Stay calm, show that expertise, and the truth will be clear to everyone. As the sun set over Chicago, James felt a possibility he hadn't in months. Justice might be achievable, not through courts or channels that failed him, but by demonstrating superior knowledge to those who could recognize it. Tomorrow, he'd re-enter the building that humiliated him, not as a desperate outsider, but as an invited expert, sharing his revolutionary work. The Chicago Convention Center's main auditorium buzzed with anticipation as nearly 2,000 tech industry leaders settled in for the Advanced Transportation panel. Morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a stage that had hosted major tech breakthroughs. Today's session promised to showcase innovations defining the next decade of sustainable transportation, with live streams reaching global tech enthusiasts. Dr. Elizabeth Bennett stood at the podium, commanding immediate attention from investors, engineers, journalists, and entrepreneurs. Her introduction of the panel's focus on breakthrough technologies sparked excitement, especially her hint at surprise demonstrations challenging conventional electric vehicle thinking. The audience didn't know how literal that promise would be. Edward Langley sat in the front row, composed in his navy suit, nodding to colleagues and investors, congratulating him on TechTrend's innovations. His confidence was unshakable, built on months of successful presentations and growing financial commitments from major automakers. He saw today's panel as another chance to cement his status as a visionary in sustainable transportation. Backstage, James Thompson reviewed his notes, hands steady despite the moment's wait. Dr. Bennett had spent the previous evening preparing him, not just for his technical presentation, but for the mental challenge of what could be his career's defining hour. Don't attack or accuse, she'd coached. Show expertise. Let your knowledge reveal the truth. The panel opened with Dr. Bennett's overview of electric vehicle technology, covering efficiency challenges, manufacturing constraints, and economic barriers to widespread adoption. Her academic authority and clear style established the session's credibility. Introducing Edward Langley, she drew enthusiastic applause. Our next presenter needs no introduction to those familiar with sustainable tech breakthroughs, she said. Edward Langley, CEO of TechTrend Innovations, will share details on what many consider the decade's most significant electric propulsion advancement. Please welcome Mr. Langley to discuss the EcoDrive revolution. Langley's presentation was polished, with sleek graphics, compelling stats, and bold predictions about transportation's future. He highlighted tech trends, 500 engineers, $200 million research budget, and partnerships with major automakers. The electromagnetic propulsion system was presented as the result of years of intensive development with top academic institutions. What we've achieved, Langley told the captivated audience, reimagines how electric vehicles operate. Our system doesn't just improve efficiency slightly, it transforms sustainable transportation, offering nearly 40% efficiency gains over conventional motors, with potential for more as we refine it. The details were accurate, impressive, and entirely familiar to James, who recognized his own work. But listening backstage, James noted Langley's explanations stayed high level, avoiding specific mathematical relationships and engineering challenges true innovators would discuss. After Langley's presentation, Dr. Bennett opened the floor for questions. Audience members asked about manufacturing timelines, costs, and patent protections. Langley answered smoothly, sounding authoritative, but vague enough to dodge technical specifics that might expose his limited understanding. Then Dr. Bennett made her move. Mr. Langley, your presentation was fascinating, and I'm sure our audience would love to dive deeper into the technical innovations. I've invited a special technical consultant to join us, someone with unique insights into electromagnetic propulsion systems to explore the engineering challenges and solutions. Langley's confident expression wavered slightly, but he stayed composed as Dr. Bennett continued. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome James Thompson, an electromagnetic systems engineer developing revolutionary electric vehicle propulsion in his Detroit research facility. Mr. Thompson, please join us on stage. Polite but curious applause greeted James as he stepped up, his presence contrasting the morning's corporate polish. In his best, modestly pressed suit and carrying a worn leather portfolio, he held the documentation that could vindicate or ruin him. Langley's face cycled through recognition, confusion, and barely controlled alarm as James approached the podium. "Thank you, Dr. Bennett," James began, voice steady despite the moment's gravity. "I'm honored to be here with so many innovators and leaders in sustainable technology. I'd like to share insights on electromagnetic propulsion systems, especially the mathematical relationships and engineering challenges behind these innovations." He opened his portfolio, pulling out a sheet with equations and diagrams. The 40% efficiency improvement Mr. Langley described hinges on a specific mathematical relationship between electromagnetic pulse frequency, vehicle momentum, and energy recovery systems. The key is precisely calibrating the electromagnetic field strength to create a feedback loop that boosts efficiency as speed increases. James turned to Langley. "Mr. Langley, I'm sure the audience would love to hear how your team discovered this relationship. Could you walk us through the mathematical derivation for your pulse frequency calculations?" The question hung heavily, its significance clear to the auditorium, even if the technical details weren't fully grasped. Langley paused a moment too long, his confidence faltering as he realized his high-level presentation hadn't prepared him for detailed questioning. "Well," he began, voice less assured, "the mathematical relationships are complex, involving multiple variables, and iterative calculations our engineering team developed through extensive computational modeling." His answer was vague, professional, but lacking the specific insights a true innovator would offer. James nodded, as if considering the response. "I understand the complexity can be hard to convey. Perhaps I can clarify for the audience." He moved to the whiteboard, writing equations with the fluid confidence of someone who derived them through years of work. "The key relationship," he explained, "is efficiency equals the square root of frequency times momentum, divided by electromagnetic resistance, with a correction factor for energy recovery feedback. This enables the 40% improvement Mr. Langley mentioned. Turning to the audience, his expertise undeniable, he continued. This equation predicts counterintuitive effects. For instance, above 60 miles per hour, the system becomes more efficient than conventional motors' theoretical maximum. Mr. Langley, how did your team verify this during testing, given its departure from established electromagnetic theory? Langley's silence was deafening. In minutes, James had shown a depth of understanding far beyond Langley's, framing questions collaboratively rather than confrontationally. The contrast was clear. One spoke with a creator's intimate knowledge, the other with a presenter's rehearsed points. Dr. Bennett stepped in, moderating what was becoming the expo's most dramatic presentation. Mr. Thompson, your insights are remarkable. Can you share the development timeline for these innovations? James's response was precise. The breakthrough came 3 years ago, after 18 months of theoretical work and prototype testing. The mathematical relationships were derived through experiments in my Detroit lab. Efficiency predictions were verified through extensive road tests of a prototype, incorporating all the innovations Mr. Langley described. The implications rippled through the auditorium. James's timeline predated Tech Trend's announcement by over 2 years, and his expertise made prior development undeniable. Langley tried to regain control. I appreciate Mr. Thompson's theoretical insights, but breakthroughs require more than academic understanding. Significant resources, testing, and intellectual property protection. Tech Trend invested hundreds of millions and employed hundreds of engineers to bring this from theory to reality. James's reply was simple yet devastating. Mr. Langley, I'm sure everyone values resources and intellectual property protection. I have the original patent application for this system, filed in March 2022, 8 months before Tech Trend's announcement. He held up an official document from his portfolio. It includes the mathematical relationships I derived on the whiteboard, plus detailed drawings and test results from my prototype. I'd be happy for Dr. Bennett or any qualified engineer here to verify its authenticity. The auditorium buzzed with murmurs as the implications sank in. James had not only shown superior technical knowledge, but provided evidence of prior development, predating Tech Trend's claims. The story shifted from competing presentations to potential large-scale intellectual property theft. Langley's composure cracked. There may be confusion about timelines and processes, he said tightly. The tech industry sees many parallel efforts, and similarities aren't uncommon. His explanation sounded weak, especially after James's technical mastery. Dr. Bennett seized the moment. Mr. Thompson, would you submit your documentation for independent verification by experts? Our audience and the tech community would benefit from examining the development timeline. James answered confidently. Absolutely, Dr. Bennett. I have full documentation, including time-stamped videos of prototype tests, correspondence with partners, and verification from MIT's engineering department, where I developed some theoretical foundations. The MIT reference added credibility, offering a path for verification hard to dismiss. The session ended with a nearly 5-minute standing ovation for James, reflecting not just appreciation for his technical prowess, but a shift in understanding about innovation and justice in an industry often valuing presentation over substance. Langley left the stage silently, his team quickly surrounding him as they exited. The damage was irreversible. In 1 hour, James Thompson transformed from an unknown outsider to a recognized innovator whose work was stolen by someone with greater resources but lesser expertise. The aftermath unfolded like a Midwest storm. Within hours, video clips of the session spread across social media, with hashtags like Justice for James and Not for Not Tech Theft trending globally. The tech press pounced on the story of a brilliant young engineer whose work was stolen by a corporate giant, framing it as a David versus Goliath battle, exposing Silicon Valley's darker side. 6 hours later, Greenwave Ventures, set to fund TechTrend with $200 million, suspended their investment pending intellectual property investigations. General Motors and Volkswagen, who had preliminary licensing agreements with TechTrend, issued similar statements. Langley's attempts to control the narrative via corporate communications failed against James's undeniable expertise and timeline. TechTrend's stock plummeted 40% in after-hours trading as investors reassessed its prospects amid patent challenges and reputational damage. 3 days later, Special Agent Sarah Mitchell from the FBI's Intellectual Property Crime Unit contacted James to discuss a formal investigation into corporate technology theft. The federal involvement turned Langley's public relations crisis into a potential criminal case. "Mr. Thompson," Agent Mitchell said, "intellectual property theft costs American businesses billions yearly, often through systematic appropriation like you've described. Your documentation and expo evidence warrant a full investigation." Meanwhile, James was flooded with opportunities. Venture capital firms competed to fund Thompson Technologies, with offers reaching $50 million for a minority stake. Tesla's board, impressed by his innovations and public handling, extended a personal invitation from Elon Musk to discuss collaboration. The most meaningful validation came from Dr. Rebecca Chen, MIT Energy Lab director, who published an open letter in the Journal of Applied Physics, verifying James's claims. "Having reviewed Mr. Thompson's documentation and methodology," she wrote, "I confirm his electromagnetic propulsion innovations are genuine breakthroughs developed through rigorous experimentation and analysis. His timeline and details align with authentic discovery by a highly skilled engineer, working independently." James's life transformed dramatically. Thompson Technologies set up headquarters in Detroit's Innovation District, hiring 50 diverse engineers committed to affordable, sustainable transportation. The Dream Garage Initiative, his scholarship for underrepresented young inventors, received 3,000 applications in its first month. His grandmother's health improved with specialized cardiac treatment he could now afford. Margaret underwent successful surgery at a top medical center, with James by her side, both marveling at their changed circumstances. "I told you justice was coming," she whispered one afternoon, her voice stronger. "I just didn't know it had arrived so dramatically." 8 months later, the FBI investigation concluded with Edward Langley's indictment for corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, and securities fraud. Overwhelming evidence, including recovered emails, showed his systematic theft of James's innovations and misrepresentation to investors. Langley's plea deal led to a 5-year prison sentence and TechTrend's dissolution, with assets distributed to defrauded investors. A year after his expo humiliation, James stood in Thompson Technologies' new Detroit manufacturing facility, 15 minutes from his old garage. The production line hummed, producing the first commercial vehicles with his propulsion system, retailing under $30,000 for working families. The facility employed over 500 local workers, transforming a struggling neighborhood into a clean tech hub. Diverse young engineers and technicians worked together, building a future for sustainable transportation. Dr. Elizabeth Bennett, now Thompson Technologies' chief scientific advisor, joined James on the factory floor as a shift ended. "When I saw your drawings in that parking lot," she said, watching vehicles prepped for delivery, "I knew you'd created something special, but I didn't imagine this." James smiled, reflecting on his journey from despair to vindication. "The technology was always revolutionary," he replied. "What changed was finding people willing to hear the truth, even when it challenged what they thought about innovation and recognition." As the sun set over Detroit, James walked through the facility, noting the engineering lab developing next-generation improvements, the quality control station ensuring his efficiency standards, and the break room displaying photos of diverse workers building climate-friendly tech. In his office, his grandmother's teaching certificate hung beside his MIT diplomas and now recognized patent documents. Margaret visited often, tutoring local students in math and science at the company's community center, passing on the encouragement she'd given James. The story that began with false accusations and theft became bigger than personal vindication. Thompson Technologies proved innovation could come from unexpected places. Justice was possible against odds, and true success wasn't about defeating enemies, but building something meaningful for others. On quiet evenings, James returned to the garage behind his grandmother's house, now a small museum documenting his journey from unknown inventor to recognized innovator. Students and aspiring engineers visited, drawn by the story, but staying to learn about persistence, documentation, and mathematical rigor. The final display was a photo from Thompson Technologies' first vehicle delivery, showing James handing keys to Maria Rodriguez, a Detroit teacher who saved 3 years for her first electric car. Her smile captured the joy of someone whose life was improved by technology designed for her needs, not luxury markets. Below, a plaque bore Thompson Technologies' unofficial motto, "They tried to steal my dream. Instead, I stole their future." But James knew the real lesson was deeper and more hopeful than revenge. Innovation belonged to those pursuing it, with integrity, persistence, and care for others. Recognition might be delayed, but it would find those who earned it. The greatest victory wasn't destroying enemies, but proving them irrelevant by building something better. As James turned off the garage museum's lights and headed to his grandmother's for dinner, he carried the quiet satisfaction of knowing tomorrow's work would keep improving technology for families like his, one carefully designed electromagnetic pulse at a time.